recommendations when you do drink caffeine, so you are more informed and you decide to keep drinking caffeine. And then we just want to get into the nutrition aspect of energy management. There are foods out there that can help boost your energy, and we want y'all to be aware of those. And then we also want y'all to understand that there are some foods that can do quite the opposite and cause fatigue and reduce your energy. And so we just overall want y'all to be informed. So I wanted to start off by adding some caffeine statistics. I thought this was very interesting. 3 in 4 Americans start their day with a caffeinated beverage. I know that I am one of those. 1 in 4 Americans believe that they can't go a whole day without caffeine. And then nearly 1 in 5 have tried to cut it out, but can't. And then to the right, I thought this was also interesting. I feel like a lot of these drinks, once it becomes a habit, we don't necessarily realize that maybe that's caffeine in it or associate it with the caffeine. It's just now one of our favorite drinks. And that shows the orange is how many people just have that in a day, and the pink shows how many have more than 3 a day. And then we thought it would be fun to add the history of caffeine. I thought this was super interesting. So tea was first, I guess, discovered back in ancient China. An emperor was boiling some water and some leaves literally just fell into the pot. And I guess he decided to try it. And it turns out that that's how we got tea. And then in the 15th century, that's when coffee was discovered first and began getting traded when a goat herder in Ethiopia noticed that his sheep got these random bursts of energy after eating from a certain plant, and that happened to be the coffee bean. And then in the 19th century, caffeine was isolated from a coffee bean, and they really realized that this did something to the mind and the body that caused you to be more alert. So what is caffeine? There are 2 different types, and I really didn't know this until I started looking into it, but there's natural and synthetic. Natural is probably what you think it is. It's a bitter substance that occurs naturally, and they can come from 60 different plants. This includes coffee beans, are probably the most popular, tea leaves, cola nuts, which I thought was super interesting because that's the flavoring in like your favorite cola products, and then cacao pods, which are the cocoa beans, what your chocolate products are made out of. And then synthetic, when you think of synthetic, that really just means like fake, and it's made in a lab, and that's usually what's going to be found in those energy drinks and sodas. So how does caffeine really work? Your body naturally produces something called adenosine, and it has some receptors in the brain that control thinking, memory, sleep, alertness, and movement. And when it's normally working, adenosine attaches to those receptors and says, it is time to go to sleep. But when you drink caffeine, caffeine binds to those receptors and says, no, it's time to be awake. So over time, there's some adenosine like trying to get you to sleep, and it makes more receptors. So you have to have more and more caffeine every single time so that, caffeine has the same effect. And so that's kind of where the dependency really begins, is when you have to keep having more caffeine to reach that same effect, because adenosine is built up and wants to put you to sleep. So here are some sources. Y'all probably recognize a lot of these. I read that a lot of y'all like coffee. That's actually one of the ones that has one of the lower amounts of caffeine. An 8-ounce cup of coffee could have 75 to 100 milligrams. And this is just like a normal drip coffee or an espresso. But obviously, if you add more and more espresso to, say, a latte, that's going to contain more caffeine. So just be aware of that. And then also be aware of those products out there that are in the cans. I know Starbucks has an energy drink kind of coffee, and so does Monster. Those are going to have way more caffeine than a normal cup of coffee. So just be aware of that. Tea is going to be is probably the lowest amount of caffeine per drink. An 8-ounce cup of tea has about 14 to 60 milligrams, and the caffeinated teas are the black or green tea. If you're looking for an uncaffeinated alternative, I would recommend herbal teas. And then energy drinks. A 16-ounce energy drink can really range anywhere from 50 milligrams to 350 milligrams. So I know there's so many different energy drinks out there, so I'm not going to try to list all the ones out there and how much caffeine they have. But just be aware and try to read the labels if you can about how much caffeine is in those. And then soda, 12-ounce can, 35 to 45 milligrams. Depends on also what size, because a bottle might have more than the can. And then chocolate, which I thought was interesting. Somebody mentioned that they like chocolate. And I didn't know for the longest time that chocolate had caffeine in it. But 1 ounce serving of dark chocolate has 12 milligrams. And then we also looked up some of the most popular chocolates out there, like a Hershey's bar. An ounce has 9 to 12 milligrams of caffeine. And then M&Ms have 9 milligrams of caffeine per ounce. And then it's important to note that the FDA does not require anyone to put the exact amount of caffeine that is found in that beverage. They only have to list that caffeine is in the product if they added it. So just be really aware and read labels if you can. If it says caffeine on it, they might not let you know how much is in it. Then we added a few slides on the hidden caffeines. This is loaded teas. These are super popular, especially here in the South. I know y'all have probably seen them on campus or students carrying these around. Any store that has like nutrition in the name, this is probably where they're found. And they have 100 to 285 milligrams of caffeine per serving. And we just recommend that you be cautious when drinking these because there's little to no nutrition or ingredient info out there. And the caffeine source really is unknown. It could be a mix of a lot of different things, and you really don't know how much caffeine you're getting in them. Additionally, they also have a lot of health claims, and none of them are really backed up by any evidence. So I would say just be mindful and careful when you are choosing to drink a nutrition or a loaded tea. The next hidden caffeine is soda. I know a lot of us do know that there is caffeine in sodas, but we wanted to note that diet and regular both have that caffeine, but there are some sodas out there that are caffeine free. So that would be a really great option if you like to have a soda with dinner or in the afternoon, because sometimes I like to have just a drink for the taste, not necessarily for the caffeine. So if you like that, try to find a caffeine-free alternative so that you can maybe sleep better at night. And then sugar and caffeine in the soda can cause an energy spike and then usually followed by a quick crash. So if you can, try to find the caffeine-free options. And we put some down below: root beer, ginger ale, Sprite, and then my favorite is Diet Coke, and they do have a caffeine-free version that would be safe for me to drink in the afternoon. So with all that being said, the recommendation is 400 milligrams a day shouldn't be harmful for a healthy adult. This doesn't mean that, oh my gosh, I have 400 milligrams, like I can drink as much as I can until I hit that. That's just the recommended max. So if you already drink like below that, don't try to drink extra. And then caffeine sensitivity can vary from person to person. So 200 to 300 might not affect one person, but it could really, really affect another person. So we added this slide of like what 400 milligrams could look like. As you can see at the top, green tea, which is one that has not that much caffeine, you could have so many of those in a day before you reach that 400 milligrams. As you can see, as it goes down and you get into those energy drinks, you can only budget for like 1 or 2 during the day. So just being aware of what you're drinking, how much caffeine is in them, and how to really steadily pace that throughout the day if you're going to drink caffeine. So, who should limit caffeine? Those who are pregnant, breastfeeding, have sleep disorders or trouble sleeping already, migraines, anxiety, those with GERD, which is acid reflux, or ulcers, have arrhythmia, which is a irregular heartbeat, and then if you have high blood pressure, and then if you take certain medications, there could be some interactions like antibiotics, asthma medications, and heart medications. But if at any point you think that maybe your condition or whatever's going on shouldn't have caffeine, then you should consult your healthcare provider. It's always a good idea to ask them maybe how much caffeine should I be having or how should I not be having it. So if you ever have any questions, your healthcare provider should be able to answer that for you. So what are some risks of drinking caffeine? Overconsumption can lead to dependency and withdrawal. Like we said earlier when we talked about how it works in the brain, you need more and more caffeine as you continue drinking it for it to get that effect. And then later down the line, if you ever wanted to quit drinking caffeine, it could lead to symptoms of withdrawal. And then it can also increase your blood pressure because it's getting that heart rate up, and just increasing that blood flow, and that can also increase your blood pressure. It also increases stomach acid. That's why it's not recommended for those with GERD or ulcers, because it can lead to an upset stomach, or if you already have acid reflux or heartburn, it can intensify that or cause it for people that don't already have it. It can interfere with calcium absorption, which as we age, this can be a problem because we don't want to lose bone density and have diseases or conditions related to low bone density. And then just an important note that all of these risks that are listed can be relevant to children too, who start drinking them from a young age. So one of the biggest risks or things that I feel like happen the most is withdrawal from caffeine. And this usually happens 12 to 24 hours after you stop drinking it. If you notice you haven't drank it in a while, you probably get a headache. And the peak symptoms usually begin 20 to 51 hours, can last a few days. And the common side effects usually are headaches, irritability, sleepiness, confusion. I think those are the most prevalent ones. And then to the extreme, there could be psychomotor impairment, tremors, nausea, vomiting, anxiety, and flushed face. So it's important that if you are wanting to reduce your caffeine, that you do that in a safe way. And we do have some tips for that. So one good way so that you don't get hit with withdrawal is gradually reduce the caffeine intake over time. And I saw a lot of recommendations to maybe keep a log of how much you drink so that each day or each week you can decrease it and see how much you're decreasing it by so that it's not too big of a jump or just like cold turkey stopping caffeine. And then another good way to gradually reduce that is replace your favorite caffeinated beverages with its non-caffeinated alternative. Like I said earlier, I love Diet Coke, and sometimes I just want it for the taste, not necessarily for the caffeine. And there's a caffeine-free Diet Coke, and that would probably make me just as satisfied. And then if you like coffee, there's decaf coffees, lattes. You can get a decaf latte. And another good idea is dilute your energy drinks or soda with water. I have heard people do this. I'm not sure how good it is, but I've also heard people will turn their coffee or soda or drinks into ice cubes and put it into their water so that they get a little bit of that flavor over time. And then another way is just to stay hydrated, because that's just going to help if you do decide to get rid of caffeine to help with those symptoms of withdrawal. So before we get into the food portion, we thought it'd be fun to add some of the common myths about caffeine, because some of these I believed for the longest time. The first one, caffeine stunts your growth. I'm sure growing up, y'all's parents told y'all that. I know my mom did, but there is no evidence to support that caffeine stunts your growth. Um, and so, yeah, it's just a common misconception that I think parents have passed down from time to time, but it does not interfere with natural growth process. The next one is that decaf coffee has no caffeine. While it has only 2 to 5 milligrams of caffeine, there still is some in there. It's probably not enough to do that much, but just be aware that there is still some caffeine. And then the third and final myth is that caffeine interferes with sleep for everyone. This is actually not true. Some people can just stay awake and go to sleep right after drinking caffeine, and some might be really hyped up after having caffeine, but everyone's metabolism and the way that they handle caffeine is different. And fun fact that people with ADHD might have a completely different response and might not even respond to caffeine. So, a little introduction to why food is more important for substantial energy instead of caffeine. So, energy from your food gets broken down from the macronutrients and it's used for cellular energy. Instead, or in comparison to caffeine, the energy is just blocking those receptors in the brain and it's just kind of telling your brain to be awake. Caffeine's effects are temporary, whereas the energy from food is actually being broken down and used for energy, and it keeps getting broken down. It's not as temporary as like a signal to the brain. So our first food for lasting energy is complex carbs. Complex carbs are high in fiber and they're more complex and take longer for the body to break down and absorb. And some good examples of those are going to be whole grains, fruits, vegetables, leafy greens, legumes. These are really great sources. They're going to keep you fuller longer than if you were to have like a simple carb or a sugary thing, because they're going to stay with you longer. They take a little bit longer to break down, so it's going to stay with you. The next food is going to be a lean protein. These take longer to digest than those complex carbs. However, proteins really keep you feeling full. So some good examples would be skinless chicken, fish, nuts, seeds, plain yogurt, legumes, or eggs. And another way to get lasting energy is having a balanced meal overall. I've realized over time that a lot of solutions to problems come back to my plate, and that's just having a balanced plate of half fruits and vegetables, 1/4 of those whole grains, and 1/4 protein. Because with that, you're probably going to meet your calorie, macronutrient, micronutrient needs to stay full throughout the day. So whenever you're in doubt, just turn to my plate. That's always a great resource. Another great way to keep your energy throughout the day is to just drink lots of fluids, specifically water, because tiredness is actually a sign of thirst sometimes. And even mild dehydration can cause a sense of fatigue. And I know, especially being in Alabama, walking from class to class or walking from the car or being in the heat can immediately make me just feel dehydrated and tired. And that's your sign to just drink some water and that tiredness might go away. So, in contrast to those, there are foods that can cause fatigue. And the opposite of those complex carbs are going to be the simple carbs or foods that are really high in sugar. And these just break down really quickly and rapidly elevate the blood sugar. And they provide an instant boost of energy, but just as quick as you get that burst of energy, it's probably going to go away and you're going to feel that tiredness again. And relying on just these simple carbs and foods high in sugar will probably cause you to overeat because you just keep going back thinking it's going to boost your energy, but it's just going to fade away. And then foods high in fat can also cause fatigue because these just take so much energy for your body to break down. And there's actually a hormone that is secreted to help break that down that causes you to kind of feel tired. And this can be from fatty meats, butter, cheese, chocolate, or processed snacks. Another one is alcohol. We know this is a depressant and it suppresses our nervous system. And so, obviously, when you're drinking it, you'll probably get more tired, but it does interfere with your sleep. So, that can really mess up your rest and cause fatigue the next day. So, that's kind of what I was thinking about when we put this in here is just it might really interfere with your sleep at night and mess up the next day, causing you to be tired. And then caffeinated drinks can also cause fatigue. In some people, consuming more caffeine can lead to a large crash because of that buildup of adenosine. So when the caffeine wears off, all of a sudden the adenosine attacks those receptors and is telling your brain like it is time to go to sleep. And now you've gotten a crash and the caffeine just goes away as quick as it worked. And then lastly, skipping meals. This is the opposite of a balanced meal. Our body needs to be fueled throughout the day to have energy at all. So it's important that we don't skip meals. Our metabolism can lower and we'll burn less energy and we'll just run out of fuel and feel super sluggish throughout the day. I know if I haven't eaten in a while, I can't think. I literally can't do anything. So it's important that we are prepared with meals and snacks. So some tips for meal timing so that you can maintain steady energy is having breakfast or caffeine, mostly focusing on breakfast within an hour and a half of waking up allows that cortisol to come down. And then eating every 4 to 5 hours after every meal. It's a great idea to try to eat your meals at the same time every day if you can. And just make sure that you have something to eat at least every 4 to 5 hours. And then if you're going to go a longer time or if you know that you get hungry in between meals, having a snack, because like I said, when you're hungry, it's hard to do literally anything. Additionally, we like to add some habits to go along with food. Taking a walk or a lap every hour can really boost your energy. I've seen a lot of studies that do point to this. And exercise sends oxygen and nutrients to your tissues and helps your cardiovascular system work more efficiently. So it's really getting that blood flowing and can get you energized. And then over time, also just being physically active can increase your endurance and help you get better at doing like daily tasks. And then take 2 minutes the night before to plan ahead for the next day. Meal prepping is an option so that you're not caught with your pants down at work and you're like, I have no snacks, no meals, and I'm starving and I have no energy. If you plan the night before, then you'll be ready to attack the next day. And then meditate before meal times or at night. Just finding ways to relax and not be stressed can really give back some of your energy, because we all know when we're stressed and you put all of your energy towards that, then you're not going to feel energized towards the things that you need to do. So meditation, mindfulness, there's a lot of resources online, YouTube videos, if that's something that you're interested in. And then avoiding caffeine in the afternoon or at dinner. Like we talked about in the slides before, a great idea would be to have a caffeine-free alternative of your favorite thing so that you're getting the same effect of having that taste but not staying awake too late at night. And then once again, meal prepping, just being prepared for the night before. So these are some ideas to build the perfect snack that you can do the night before. If you're going to go longer than 4 to 6 hours between meals, you should probably have a snack just so that you can tide yourself over and still feel energized and get you to the next meal. So it's really important when you're making a snack that you have 1 carb and 1 protein. The protein's going to slow the digestion down of the carb, and you will stay satisfied a little bit longer. And some good ideas that are shown on the side of the screen. There's some apples and peanut butter. You can do veggies or crackers and hummus. Boiled eggs are great options. Trail mix. There's charcuterie board or any type of meat, cheese, things like that. And then if you weren't prepared for when you get to work and you realize you don't have a snack, I know it can be hard to try to make the right choice, but there are some good choices in vending machines. This is a vending machine here on campus, and I know every vending machine can be a little different, but there are some pretty good choices in there. And this one is specific from the bottom. They have beef jerky sticks. Those have 9 grams of protein, so that's going to keep you fuller longer than if you were to get like a candy or a chip from in there. Peanut butter crackers are a good option. It has 4 grams of protein and a carb source. And then this vending machine in particular had blueberry almonds, which have 8 grams of protein. I'm sure there's more options in other ones and maybe regular flavored almonds, but just know there are good choices that you can still get if you didn't pack your own snack. So we added some recipes in here that we thought would be great and could help keep your energy up if y'all needed ideas, things that are easy to pack. First one was overnight oats. This is something that I loved for so long and made every single day. They're super customizable, so you can make it exactly how you like it, and they only require a few ingredients, and all of the ingredients are relatively cheap. Oats, which is your carb source, and it's also a complex carb, so it'll take a little bit longer to digest. Milk, usually milk is a good source of protein. And then fruit, nut butters, and other toppings are also going to add more volume, more fiber. And then also chia seeds is a great idea. If you've ever tried those, those are really good. And they also are a great source of fiber. But you can make all of these, you can make like 5 of them on a Sunday night, and you have Monday through Friday ready to go. And you don't have to think about it, and you can just grab it and walk out the door. And then if you're not interested in sweet breakfast, we decided to add a savory idea. Cottage cheese has been really trendy recently. So, these are scrambled eggs. This one in particular, I think was like 2 eggs and a 1/4 cup of cottage cheese, and you get about 19 grams of protein from that. Whereas if you just had eggs, it would only be about 12. And then the toast, whole grain is the best option because it's going to have those complex carbs and fiber. And then the fruit also just adds more fiber and natural source of sugar, and they're just really good for you. Then for our lunch example, we have a turkey wrap. We used to make these all the time at home. I would take them to school all the time, and they're super good, super easy to make. You can make several, and they last a pretty good amount of time if you want to meal prep these. A tortilla, which is going to be your carb, lettuce and red pepper, that's your veggie, gives you some fiber, some hummus, that's going to add a little bit of protein, and it's also a better option than adding like mayo and some other condiments, and it's still going to keep your wrap pretty flavorful. And then turkey or any lunch meat that you like, that's going to add more protein, and it doesn't have to be exactly like this. This one's also super customizable. You can add what you like. Avocado would be a great thing to add. Yeah, you can really just change it up and make it to your liking. Then we had this dinner example. This one is great. You can meal prep it and also take it for leftovers if you would like, and it makes a pretty big portion. It was a great source of protein, healthy fats, and vegetables, and it has 36.8 grams of protein in one serving, and it has 12 grams of carbs, so it has your carbs in there, and it has a lot of protein. and then it has 19 grams of fat. And then what we thought was really cool about this one is it's under $3 per serving. So this is a really good and healthy meal, and it's relatively cheap and could fit most budgets. And then lastly, we had to throw in a dessert idea because I know I always need a sweet treat. Chocolate hummus is a great alternative if you really like chocolate, dipping like pretzels in there, strawberries in there. It has protein in there. It's just a really great um, option. And then dates. I love dates with peanut butter or almond butter. Melt some chocolate chips over it, or put some just chocolate chips regularly on it, and it really is good. It's similar to a Snickers bar. Um, I think they're really good and they're really filling. And then lastly, black bean brownies. There's a lot of different recipes out there on how you can add like chickpeas, black beans, or like any type of legumes to like dessert recipes, and it should keep you fuller longer, and it's just getting more protein into that diet and just a healthier way to enjoy one of your favorite foods. And so with all that, we hope that you learned a lot about caffeine, and these are our 5 like takeaways. First one is, so is caffeine good or bad for you? It really just is important that you are informed on what you're drinking and how much you're drinking, and it really depends on how and when you consume it. So we hope that this presentation really gave you an idea of what that could look like for you. And then it's important to check the labels on your favorite drinks, favorite products, to make sure that there aren't hidden sources of caffeine that you didn't know about, so that you're mindful about how much you are having in a day. You need to stick to complex carbs and lean proteins to keep you energized throughout the day. And then, in contrast to that, avoid simple carbs, sugars, fatty meats, and processed foods that will leave you feeling sluggish throughout the day. And then lastly, just staying hydrated, drinking lots of fluids, specifically water, should help you stay energized. So that's all I have, but if y'all have any questions, I can try to answer some.